What's happening, guys? We're back, and I got gear oil this time. Alright guys, I went out and picked up some gear oil last week, so we should be ready to assemble everything. We should have all the parts we need. I don't have a pile of time to work in the shop this weekend. I was out of town all last week, and I'm out of town again next week, so we're gonna see how far we get. The goal today is to get the whole rear end assembled, brakes on it, ready to go. We'll see how far we get. But first steps first though, we're gonna throw some gear oil into those pinion bearings, drop the pinion in, and start the assembly. All right, so we've hit kind of a hard stop while we were tightening up that pinion nut. And I think what it is I've now fully seated my small end bearing up against that crush sleeve. And now we're on to torquing up into that crush sleeve. So I've slid the differential over so I can rest my, whatever you want to call this, stabilization bar on the chassis. I'm actually gonna clamp that down. And then I went and got a chunk of pipe to kind of snipe onto this thing. This is gonna take a lot of force, so I'm a little bit nervous about the whole diff falling off of our jack stands. So I'm gonna clamp it here. I'll probably clamp it down to the jack stands, get a little more solid so that I can really lean into her with the snipe. And then we gotta put a pile of pressure on it. All right, we got some preload on here now. I can feel that it's taking a little bit of effort to turn those bearings. To do this properly, we check this now with an inch-pound torque wrench, but I don't have one, so we're gonna have to just kind of guess at what it takes. I could probably use like a fish scale, but I don't have one of those either. So this feels about right. This feels like it might even be a little bit tight, but it's where it's gonna be. So we fully compressed everything. You can't really back it off. Once you crush that sleeve, you're done. So we're gonna just hope that that's good enough. It might be a little bit tight. We might wear out those bearings a little bit early, but it is what it is. We'll just have to rebuild it again later. So that's all set now. We can pull off our bar and toss in the ring gear. All right, I got the carrier sitting in here. I couldn't get it to fit with the factory shims. So the factory shim on this side was a 275 thou. I went down to a 250 thou shim. That kit that we got had a whole whack of shims. So went down to a 250 thou shim on this side. I can already tell my bearing preload isn't enough, so I am gonna have to add a couple shims to one of these two sides. But what we're gonna do is I'm gonna buzz the caps on and check my backlash real quick, and it'll tell me kind of which side I wanna put that shim on. And then it's gonna be a whole bunch of kind of trial and error to get the right shim stack on either side. You want kind of a little bit of bearing preload, while also getting the correct backlash. I think that's already too much backlash, but we'll run the caps down, we'll measure it real quick, and then we'll have an idea how we can adjust it. I'm not gonna go through the whole adjustment procedure quite frankly, because I'm not the guy that you guys should be learning from. This is my first time setting up this style, so we'll kind of do what we can do. Funny story, I played around with a whole bunch of different shim stacks, and then finally I was just like, let's just try throwing in the factory shims and see what'll happen. Managed to get them in after a little bit of practice, and with the factory shims I sit right at 8 thou of backlash, and the spec is somewhere between 7 to 15 thou, so that's about perfect. So I didn't have to even bother wasting my time with all those shims. So we're gonna leave it there. I think the next step is we'll paint the gears. All right, that pattern looks pretty good. Looks like the teeth are meshing pretty well. These are well-worn in gears, so they got a pretty wide contact patch. So I'm gonna leave them like that. We'll button up the back cover, and then we can move on to axle seals and axles and everything like that. But that'll be tomorrow, because right now, I gotta go take care of my kid. All right, we got a few more hours to work in the shop today. So we're gonna try to assemble our axle ends. The gear set's all done. The axles are really what kind of spurred this rebuild. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick this up, but where the bearing rides on the axle, I got a major groove cut into these. These are old junkyard axles, so kind of to be expected. Theoretically, I could solve these with special bearings that move the contact patch out on the axle, but the best way to do it is just replace them. So I got new axles, I got new seals, new bearings, new brake shoes, etc, etc, etc. So we're just gonna start assembling, and hopefully she all goes well. All right, I think we're gonna have to set our sights a little lower. I only got another 30 minutes to work in the shop before I gotta head out to a birthday party. So I'm gonna try to get at least the backing plate and the e-brake system all put together on this side, and then I'll do the other side later. But let's take a look at some of the parts that we have. I got some brand new discs. I got new brake shoes for the e-brake. I got new pads for the calipers. I got all new hardware for the e-brake mechanism. And then I went through and cleaned up my my caliper mount. I cleaned up my brake caliper. I do have a rebuild kit for these, but I'm not gonna have time to rebuild them today, so we'll have to do that another day. That's a rebuild kit. And then I cleaned up and straightened as best as I could the backing plates, because I can't find anywhere to buy new backing plates, so we'll have to make do with the old ones. So let's try to get as much of this onto here in the next 30 minutes. looks like I'm a little out of practice with drum brakes. We got them on. They're a lot more difficult than I remember. I have done drums in the past. My old car used to have drums in the back, but it's been a while. So we got the e-brake system on there. We'll have to come up with something for a cable. I don't really know what yet, but we'll figure that out. That is all that we're gonna have time for this week though. I gotta run. Next week, hopefully we can rebuild the rear calipers, get those mounted on here, and then maybe look at throwing this guy back in the chassis. We'll put our wheel spacers on as well and suck those wheel studs in tight. But yeah, we'll do that next week. So in the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe button. Go check us out on Instagram, Leftfootfirst Media, and we'll see you next week. I'm out of here.